Hi, we're the huge movie fanatics here to review Battleship, which I can hardly say without giggling. Anyway, we're here to review Battleship, based on Hasbro's famous game, which I love, by the way. So yeah, Battleship. I have to admit, when I saw the preview to this, I was like, wow, this is going to be the worst movie of all time. I saw the preview about a year ago, when it first debuted with its teaser. I literally thought it was a joke. I thought it was like a pseudo Grindhouse trailer, because it started with Liam Neeson sort of at the head of a ship, and I was like, oh, this is genius. And then and it had like the super high-tech Hasbro logo, which I think is kind of cool, but I was just like, this is looking serious. Like, they spent a lot of money on this joke. And then as it went on and on, I started to realize, I was like,
wait a second.
Bullshit. So I went to IMDb, and it was a legitimate movie. I was like,
oh, no.
I cannot believe this is real. So a year later, we get the movie, and it is exactly what the trailer looks like, but I liked it better than I thought I was gonna. I will say that. It is. It still was, at that point, the worst movie I'd seen in the year. So yeah, I have three qualities I will say about that movie, but I will touch on those after you take it.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna give it.
Well, I'll give it. Probably being really generous here, but I'll give it 2 stars.
I'd say you're being very generous. I've seen 4 movies this year: Avengers, Battleship, Men in Black 3, and Prometheus. This is, for me, the worst so far. This is almost, for me, almost a walkout kind of movie. I went into it knowing it was going to suck. You know, let's face it. But I didn't know it was going to suck so bad. I mean, the first scene, we can spoil this out. That's fine.
Okay.
The first scene where it's just all about what this bummy kind of
that stuff was all horseshit.
Bullshit, and like this woman would even be single in the first place, and she comes in for a burrito or whatever, and
you know, I have heard that like a lot of really attractive women actually have a lot of trouble finding anybody, because nobody asks them out, because everybody just assumes
you can ask me. Ask me out. And one thing I think is a lot of women, especially being like, you know, me, is that, you know, how many women actually, I mean, women can ask me out. Can't they ask guys out? I mean, they don't have to. It's the 21st century.
Well, now it's like it's becoming more and more common, but that's still with sort of younger people. Like people in my age group started like doing it more and more as I was seeing, but like nobody ever asked me out either.
Yeah, ask me out, women. But anyway, I guess anyway.
Battleship.
Back to the movie. Ask me out, women. So anyway, so that beginning was just like, oh man, you know, it's like it makes Transformers look like, you know.
Oh, this is way better than Transformers.
You give it the same sort of, and you say it's way better than Transformers.
Oh, this is way better than the Transformers franchise.
Oh my gosh, this is just so appalling. And of course, just like the first two, primarily the first 2 Transformers are obviously, basically paid for by, you know, military whatever. This is obviously, since it's like a Navy movie and all this.
I have something to say about that later on. Remind me, Army and the Avengers. So keep going.
I don't know if I can remember to remind you, so maybe you should say it now.
I was reading online that because the Navy did put their money towards this.
Yes.
The Army and Marines and stuff put their money into Iron Man and Iron Man 2 and stuff for help, like all that stuff. They did not put any money down for the Avengers, citing that it had
conflict of interests.
Yeah, conflict of interests, and they cited specifically the aliens and stuff like that.
Meaning what?
And the alien invasion aspect of the movie.
They didn't want.
But this movie is about an entire alien invasion. That doesn't make sense. So was the Transformers trilogy. Am I right? So
I'd say so.
You know what the problem with the Avengers is that I think?
What?
The Avengers is about a government organization trying to blow up Manhattan because aliens are invading.
Holy shit, brother.
And then they were like,
this is too much like reality.
Yeah, they're like, well, we can't make the army look bad.
We can't make it look like there's secret.
Like, they said yes, and then they pulled out once they saw the script. There you go.
That's kind of, what's that called? Guilty posturing or something
something like that. But anyway...
Matt, that is extremely interesting, and I'm glad I had you say it now. Otherwise, you may have forgotten about
Yeah.
That is very cool, and I think it says a lot.
Yeah, I can see if I can find the link and post it.
That's very interesting. What the hell was I saying?
Military
movie. One thing I will give it props for is that I was very impressed when we limped on over to the well, we didn't limp, we limped out of the when we went to that hospital or whatever. I was very impressed that they went to the hospital, the veterans hospital, and saw all they actually showed the effects of war, which is losing limbs, losing legs. I was very impressed because a pro military war movie shouldn't do that if they want recruits.
And it was scenes like that that actually made me like the movie a little bit better. Like, it is a bullshit, awful movie.
Awful movie.
But there are things like that I like. That, like, I love the Avengers, but one of my complaints about it is you have this huge war happening at the end of the movie. You hardly see at all any of the human side of it. You focus on the superhero, and I mean, you get little glimpses of like inside when Captain America saves the people inside the bank that are holed up, and all the aliens that have their guns trained on them, and he comes in and kicks ass. And you see a little bit of how they're disturbed and whatnot, but you didn't see like the death side of things. Whereas this movie actually showed you a little bit of that, which I thought was kind of bold, I guess.
Yeah, I was very surprised. But what it ended up doing as a kind of whatever, coming back and saying that maybe losing your legs isn't so bad, is showing this guy basically. I think their way of showing the people losing their limbs is by saying, well, if we show this guy that he can live afterwards, and that he can, which he's not exactly, in a way I thought it was good and bad, because it's like, well, sure, he can limp around on his steel legs, but it's not exactly necessarily enjoyable, is my argument. Or I can only imagine maybe it's not as enjoyable as your real legs.
Yeah.
So by saying that, but I think that's what they were saying is, see, even if you lose your legs for your country, you can still go for a hike with a hottie. I mean, and by showing that, he can still kick ass and all this stuff, which is fine.
Yeah.
But that's I think that's what I wanted to comment most on, is that I was impressed about at least addressing that. I was very surprised, because really, if you're trying to sell, join the Navy, join whatever, you really don't want people who are thinking of signing up to even consider the fact that could happen as a salesman. Since
the Army endorsed the toys for Transformers, and the Navy endorsed the game Battleship, are they going to have like the Air Force do Connect 4? Like, is that their next step? Like,
probably.
Because I'm trying to think where they're going to go next.
That's pretty good.
Like, I mean,
Connect 4. Air Force at their best.
They'll find a way to, like, they'll find a way to make it work.
But yeah, I was absolutely appalled. I mean, this is just so much bullshit. Go on.
There were 3 things that I liked about the movie.
Did you see them yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I mean, that was the 4th thing, but that was sort of like a little minor thing. The thing that I actually liked about the craft of this movie was the alien missiles were the pegs from Battleship. And I was like, somebody was thinking that morning. Somebody came in and was like, hey guys, I got this idea. and they were like, that's genius. We can put this in. And like, it actually, I liked that. And I saw that and I kind of laughed out loud, that I was like, that is actually really clever. I never would have thought of that.
And how many people even watching it have any idea?
I mentioned it to 4 people who have seen the movie, and they were like, I didn't even think about that. And it's like, well, there you go. But I thought that was like really kind of clever. The thing that I think the last 20 minutes of this movie...
You like the older folks?
Oh, right before that. I guess the last 30 minutes of this movie actually kind of pick up and actually give you an ending kind of thing, whereas the Transformers is just like, it's action, and it's more action, and it's more action.
Yeah, that's true.
This actually had, like, we were getting our ass kicked, and then we, this movie has a climax where we figure out how to fight them, and that was kind of genius, because they're like, well, we have these things underwater that can sense the disturbance of the water around them, since they don't show up on our radar.
I forgot about that, yeah.
And then the captain's like, well, how do we find them? We have a grid. And then he pulls it up, and it's the grid from Battleship. I was like, that was genius. And actually, when that happened, the movie started getting entertaining, because I was like, oh shit, are they actually going to hit the ship or are they not? Because everything's happening underwater at this point, and like, or just above the water. And I was like, you know, this is kind of cool. If the movie had been this, sort of like Star Trek is submarine combat, if they had done this movie like submarine combat, that would have been really fascinating. That would have been interesting. You don't even necessarily need to see. You can just have the tense reactions of the people's faces of, did it hit? Did it hit? And then, no, that one missed. Okay, we gotta shoot another. Where's the thing going? Like, that would have been fascinating. And the movie did pick up when that happened. And then they had the stupidest thing in the world at the beginning of the movie where they're like,
yes, they
well,
did.
see this? This is a battleship. These are outdated. We have these destroyers. These things kick ass. And then they show how the destroyers get destroyed throughout the whole movie, and then they have to go to the battleship, but nobody knows how to run it, so they get the old people in, which was super.
Old people.
It was super like overly sentimental and kind of like
Michael
cheesy.
Bay. Dun,
Yeah,
dun, dun,
Michael
motion.
Bay cheesy, but you know I actually kind of liked that, and I liked how they utilized the battleship in the movie. So those were the three things I liked about the movie. And I'm being really generous with the 2 stars, but it did. The reason I give it 2 stars is because like half a star for each of those 3 points, I guess. But no, it impressed me because I was expecting it to be a lot worse than it was.
Yeah,
when I started the movie, I was like,
why.
oh god, this is exactly what I was expecting. And then as it went on, there were little glimpses here and there where it actually showed me something that I wasn't expecting it to do.
And that girl, I mean, they didn't go all Megan Fox. They didn't pan down her body.
She can
I
actually,
don't think so.
they didn't,
So-
and she can actually act.
So there were some props for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like,
I've seen her in 2 movies this year, and she actually could act in both of them. So I mean,
what's the other one?
what to expect when you're expecting?
Oh, okay.
I saw that. It was much better than this.
Okay, so 1.5 stars for me. It was pure, utter, almost walkout crap, and you know, go war. We love war. It's good for business. Oh, one thing I actually really thought was cool in one of the actions at the very end, which I actually went, now that is cool. Like I would rewind if I was watching the Blu-ray, is the fighting, his interpretation of fighting the enemy where he's not or whatever, and, and the fact that they're like going like, I can't remember exactly how it went, but you did this, then you drop anchor, and then they're ready to shoot here, and it stops and it pulls the thing just so it's aiming the right way, and like that was cool.
Yeah, see,
that part was cool.
The climax stuff was actually
but, I mean,
well thought out, but it took so much crap to get there.
The 90 minutes to get there.
Yeah, and the action in the whole like destruction scenes were so bad. There was so much stuff going on you couldn't tell what was happening. And the reason I keep
so maybe it's not Michael Bay, maybe it's Hasbro.
Maybe. But, like the reason I keep on bringing up the Avengers is because this was the big action movie that followed the Avengers. But the Avengers actually, like, there wasn't a moment in the last, like, 30 minutes of action of that movie where you were like, what's happening here? Like, you could follow everything that was going on. There was no question of what. And there were giant... There were giant things, Transformers, like floating in the sky and crashing down. You could still tell what was going on. They were shooting missiles and it was cutting through parts of the ship. You have no idea what weren't established. You couldn't tell.
Why is it what?
You couldn't tell what was happening most of the time, and it was just frenetic action for the frenetic action's sake, but no humanity to it. Whereas the Avengers brought a lot of the humanity, with the superhero characters to the movie. Like you saw how when Captain America got shot, he fell over and he grabbed Thor's hand to get back up, kind of thing. And you saw how it affected the superheroes. I would have liked to have seen it affect the humans as well, but you got something out of that. This, you saw, you didn't have time to reflect on how the humans reacted because they exploded. Like, there wasn't anything there. And the only person who reacted to it was the captain, and he just used it as a motivational tool of, well, now I can't suck. And it's too bad. I like that actor. He's repeatedly in pretty bad movies. He was Gambit in Wolverine, which was pretty stupid. And he was in John Carter, which I actually liked John Carter.
The movie?
Yeah, he was the star. He was John Carter. He was really good in that, and it wasn't a bad movie, but I feel bad for him because this is like a third movie that kind of tanked in a row, and it's too bad. He's a good actor. I'd like to see him go on, but I have a feeling that he's becoming box office poison because Battleship did not make its money back. It's the most expensive movie ever made that's been the least successful in making its dollar back.
Well, I'm glad you people have a brain out there because it's just so dumb.
Yeah. So, there you go.
1.5 and 2.
2.
You sank my battleship!
Yeah, that was never said. I was kind of...
I know. Wasn't that stupid? I thought when, of course there's only one battleship in the movie, right?
They could have said,
you sank my destroyer.
Yeah,
like when they killed his brother,
yeah.
They should have said, they sank my destroyer.
Well, I was expecting Liam Neeson, because he's the head of the Navy or something, to be like, they're sinking my destroyers out there. We need to get in there. Like, just get in there or something like that.
If I was doing it, you'd have to find a way, within the context of the story, that you could say the damn line.
Yeah.
You sank my destroyer.
Yeah.
You know, you can replace Battleship with Destroyer, but you gotta say you sank my destroyer.
You know what would have been kind of clever is if they'd somehow rigged it so that the ship exploded when, or so, like they could destroy the two things at once, or like drive the battleship into it and then just have everybody like bail right beforehand. Or have somebody go down with the ship, like in the good old days. But then like when they're devising the plan, the John Carter captain guy is like, "All right, I know what we do. We sink the battleship or something like that, and then have it like plow in or something like that." But the way that it ended was probably a lot cooler than that. But I'm just trying to find a way to make that line work. I'm sure
they probably were too.
Yeah, they're like, it can't be done. It just cannot be done.
I mean, it was so stupid anyway, as it was. You know, it wouldn't have made it much more stupider to have someone say that.
That's true.
And I was literally waiting the whole damn movie
forward,
and I think a lot of people probably were. So.
Or you could have, because the battleship did eventually sink in the movie, right?
I can't even remember.
I can't even remember
I don't
either.
know if I was still there.
But you know what? You know when Liam Neeson meets up with him at the end,
Yes.
he could have just been like, "You sank my battleship."
Wouldn't that have been odd? That would have been the perfect place for it. I bet you.
And it would have been like lighthearted and kind of.
Perfectly. That would have been the place for it.
I figured it out. Hire me, Hasbro. I can make Battleship 2 for you.
All right. Well, maybe they'll.
Please, I would never associate my dead with
What would you do? Connect 4?
I would do. I want to see if I can find a way to make Connect 4 work.
Connect 4. The what'd you say, Air Force?
Yeah, the Air Force's Connect 4.
I'm sure you can do it.
That'd be great.
Thanks for watching.